There's a place on a football pitch that coaches warn their players about, a psychological zone, a point of total collapse. Football people call it different things, but on July 8, 2014, in a stadium in Brazil, it got a new name, the no-return zone. Because on that night, the host nation, five-time World Cup champions, playing in front of their own fans, carrying the hopes of 200 million people, walked into that zone, and they never walked back out. In one stretch of football, just 6 minutes of real time, a functioning international football team disintegrated completely. Not just lost, disintegrated, like a fortress wall that doesn't crack slowly, but collapses all at once. By the end of the night, the scoreboard read a number so strange that commentators thought it was a mistake. Germany 7, Brazil 1. This is the tactical autopsy of the most devastating 90 minutes in football history. This is the story of how an army was ambushed, trapped, and dismantled in their own home. To understand the collapse, you first need to understand the pressure. Brazil were hosting the World Cup on home soil. For a footballing nation that lives and breathes the sport more than almost anywhere on earth, this was not just a tournament, it was a sacred mission. Brazil had reached the semifinal, one win from the final. The entire country was preparing to celebrate, but two things happened that cracked the foundation before the match even started. First, Neymar, Brazil's best player, their most dangerous attacking weapon, suffered a serious back injury in the quarterfinal against Colombia. He was out, completely out, carried away on a stretcher while the nation watched in horror. Second, Thiago Silva, the team's captain, their defensive leader, the general organizing the back line, suspended for the semifinal due to accumulated yellow cards. Think about what this means in military terms. Imagine an army about to fight its most important battle, and on the morning of the fight, you lose your most lethal weapon and your commanding officer at the same time. Brazil's manager, Luis Felipe Scolari, had to rebuild his structure in days, not weeks. Meanwhile, Germany arrived at this semifinal as a different kind of force entirely. Calm, clinical, tactically disciplined under manager Joachim Löw. Germany's system was built on intelligent rotation, quick combination passing, and one devastating weapon, ruthless punishment of any defensive mistake. They didn't need emotion to fuel them. They only needed one thing, a gap. And Brazil, wounded, emotional, missing their two most important soldiers, were about to give them several. The match began exactly how Brazil needed it to. Loud, aggressive, full of emotional energy. The crowd roaring, the players pressing high, trying to suffocate Germany before they could settle. For the first 10 minutes, it looked like passion might be enough. Then, the 11th minute, a corner kick for Germany. Brazil's defensive structure, already weakened by Thiago Silva's absence, set up to defend it. But here is the first crack in the wall. In a defensive set piece, every player has one job. Track one opponent. Do not lose them. Do not let them have a free run at goal. Thomas Mueller drifted to the edge of the box, unmarked, completely unmarked. Watch the replay and you can see it happening in real time. 3 Brazilian defenders are all looking at the ball, all assuming someone else has Mueller covered. Nobody did. Mueller received the ball with total freedom and finished calmly into the net. 1-0 Germany. This is what military strategists call an unguarded flank. One small gap in an otherwise organized structure, and the enemy doesn't need a big opportunity. They only need one moment of hesitation. Brazil's response to going behind should have been controlled, calm, reorganize the shape, close the gaps, play with patience. Instead, panic crept in. You could see it in their body language. Players started rushing passes. Players started pushing too far forward too quickly, desperate to equalize immediately rather than build pressure patiently. And that desperation was about to walk Brazil directly into the most devastating ambush in World Cup history. Germany score again. Miroslav Klose, calm, clinical, the most experienced striker on the pitch, pokes the ball home from close range after another defensive mix-up. 2-0. Brazil's structure is now visibly breaking. Players are out of position. The midfield has stopped functioning as a shield. There are gaps everywhere.
between defense and midfield, between midfield and attack. Minute 24. 1 minute later, Toni Kroos receives the ball just outside the box. Nobody closes him down. He has time, too much time. He strikes calmly into the corner. 3-0. The stadium has gone almost completely silent. 60,000 people in shock. Minute 26. 2 minutes after that, another defensive collapse. Another German player given time and space inside Brazil's own penalty area, a place that should be the most heavily protected zone on the entire pitch. Kroos scores again. 4-0. This is the moment football changed forever. 4 goals, 18 minutes, a nation's World Cup dream not just damaged, but obliterated in real time. Minute 29. Sami Khedira finishes off a fast, surgical counterattack, with Brazil's defenders standing still, unable to process what was happening around them. 5-0. 5 goals, 29 minutes. Let's be clear about what was actually happening tactically, because this is the most important lesson of the entire match. Germany were not doing anything complicated. They were doing the basics: quick passing, intelligent movement, and ruthless finishing. Brazil, on the other hand, had completely lost their defensive shape. No pressing structure, no cover between the lines, defenders making individual decisions instead of moving as one unit. This is what happens when an army stops fighting as an organized force and becomes a collection of frightened individuals. Once that happens on a football pitch, there is no recovery. You have entered the no-return zone.
Halftime, 5-0. Brazil's players walked off the pitch like soldiers retreating from a battlefield they no longer recognized. Some were crying already. The second half brought no recovery, no tactical miracle, just more punishment. Minute 69, Silva scores. 6-0. Minute 79, Silva scores again. 7-0. Brazil did find one goal, Oscar, in the 90th minute. A small mercy, a single shot of pride in an ocean of humiliation. Final whistle. Germany 7, Brazil 1. The most one-sided result in World Cup semi-final history. German players didn't celebrate wildly. They knew what they had just done. They hugged each other quietly, almost in disbelief themselves. Brazilian players sat on the grass. Some couldn't look up. The cameras captured grown men, national heroes, completely broken in front of their own people. In the stands, silence, then tears, then thousands of fans simply walking out before the final whistle had even blown, unable to watch anymore. This was not just a defeat. This was a complete tactical and psychological collapse witnessed live by the entire world. Why does this match still matter more than a decade later? Because it teaches the single most important lesson in all of football tactics. A team's structure, their defensive shape, their discipline, their ability to stay organized even in crisis is more important than any individual emotion, no matter how passionate, no matter how desperate to win. Brazil were not lacking effort that night. Nobody could question their heart. What they lacked in those 6 catastrophic minutes was control. When Mueller scored the first goal, Brazil needed calm. Instead, panic took over. And panic is the exact moment a team crosses into the no-return zone, the point where individual fear replaces collective structure and a team stops functioning as one unit. Germany, in total contrast, never panicked, never rushed. They simply kept doing the basics perfectly, again and again, until the opponent in front of them had nothing left. This is the brutal truth about football's most unforgiving battlefield. It does not punish a lack of talent. It punishes a lack of composure. One mistake can be recovered from. 2 mistakes can be managed. But once a team's discipline breaks completely, once panic spreads from player to player like fire through dry grass, there is no tactical instruction, no team talk, no individual moment of brilliance that can pull them back. Brazil 2014 will forever be the most extreme example in football history of what happens when a team enters that zone.
And the lesson applies to every level of the game, from World Cup semifinals to your local Sunday league. Stay calm, stay organized, protect your structure. Because once you cross into the no-return zone, there is no way back. Here is your question for today. Do you think Brazil's collapse was caused more by the missing Neymar and Thiago Silva, or by the psychological panic once Germany scored that first goal? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your tactical breakdown. And if you want more deep tactical analysis of football's most dramatic matches, subscribe right now. Every week, we break down the moments that changed football forever. The next battlefield is waiting.